So my name is Shemar James. I am a author, specifically in this conversation, a comic book author. And I have been doing comic books, I think probably since 2009 or 2010. That's how long this story is, at least with the cover behind me. I've been working on the story for at least 10 years now. So yeah. Yeah, so I currently work for myself. Most of my life, I pretty much did only self-publishing. So I've been very independent in terms of content creation as a writer, as an author. Um, I I'm not opposed to working for a company in the future if it's the right deal or right opportunity, but so far, it's just been myself. This is Modern Monarchy, the Caveman King. I actually started writing this story about 10 years ago, but I just actually released it in 2019, the first volume. The genre I would say is around like maybe adventure, fantasy, action, superheroes, stuff like that. Um, there's 3 volumes for the story right now. So those are available on Amazon and Lulu.com. The story basically is about Princess Eve, who's the main character, and then her friends, who are all, or most of them are cave people. What I love about this story is that prehistoric and modern people exist together. So there's no like time travel or anything. It's just like, you have Chicago, and then you have like cave people living maybe 5 miles away, west or something like that. So she is the princess of her kingdom. Her parents ruled the monarchy, and they take a trip and they leave her and her brother, who's the prince, behind to look over the kingdom. Um, and Princess Eve is very like, she does everything by the book. She's always careful, wants to make her parents proud, wants to be responsible. But little does she know that the Caveman King, who is the primary villain in the story, has been wanting to overthrow their kingdom for years now, and he feels like this is the prime time to do it while her parents are away. Um, so Maria, Princess Eve's best friend, encourages her to let loose. Now your parents are gone. It's time for you to have fun. She, gets negatively influenced by her friend, and they go for a walk without the castle guards, which is absolutely forbidden. And then that leaves them kind of in open field to be kidnapped by the Caveman King's minions and brought back to his castle to be killed. So basically the story kind of just follows that adventure, her and her friends trying to ward off this evil caveman king trying to overthrow their kingdom and take over. And they throughout the story they make friends with people from the modern era. You get to see the tensions and the history between the modern people and the cave people, maybe why there's conflict between them. But I love the story because it really encourages people from different places of life to work together for a common goal. um, you know, to look past differences and really, fuse together, um, working together to stop the evil that's trying to separate people and trying to conquer their homes. So, there's superheroes, there's giants, there's aliens, there's action-packed, fighting scenes. There's so much in it, and that's why the story was so much fun to make. You know, I like to think about it as like there's a creative side and then there's a business side to it, right? The creative side is me writing, and that process could be anything. What I love to do is I try to time myself and at least allow myself to write a minimum of 30 minutes to a max of X plus hours. It depends if I get into the flow or not of things. But I always want to leave aside time each day to do creative writing. Now, that could be continuing a story that I'm writing. It could be proofreading something that I've done. It could be the interior design of the book. It could be making outlines for where I want the story to go. A lot of times, I think writers get stuck, or creators get stuck because they don't know where they want their project to go. I think it's important to write those details down. The more that you outline where you want your project to go, I think the stronger the story can be. So half of the time I might not even be writing the story. I might be writing the bullet points of how I want things to be laid out. Um, character development, bubbles and charts, making sure that everything, there's no plot holes in my story. So I think half of it's writing the story, getting the visuals together, but also building the story to make sure it comes together in different ways. There's also the business component. So learning how to market myself, learning how to market my book. That could be connecting with professionals online who know how to do that. That could be me, myself, posting on social media, promoting my book, promoting my work, sharing quotes from my book, sharing character bios of my book. That could be running Facebook and Instagram ads. So lots of different things, getting book reviews, talking to other authors. And so I think there's a networking and professional business side to it, but there's also the working on my craft every day that I also have to do, and just kind of finding that balance. So. Yeah, I was thinking about this question. I think it's a little tough to answer because um, I think personal drive and passion for what you do as a writer, as a content creator, can sometimes supersede the education that you've had. So I think, if I had to give an answer, I'd probably say maybe at least a high school diploma. But I think I spent so much time learning and honing my craft outside of school, and learning how to use different programs, and learning how to use different softwares to put my stories together. Um, I was working on this story when I was in middle school. And so I just finished grad school a couple of months ago. So you can see how long things take, um, but that you don't really need a lot of experience to tell a story if you're really passionate about it. Um, my first book that I published was not a comic book. It was actually a sci-fi novel, but I published that halfway through high school. So I didn't even have a high school diploma at that point, but I still published. So it was really just the drive and my love for writing and wanting to share it with others, that really wanted me to really encourage me to put myself out there. And so I think uh, if someone wants a really definite answer, I would say maybe at least a high school diploma. But I guess I'm contradicting myself because I did it before that. So in my master's program that I just finished this past June, I was in entrepreneurship, my master's in entrepreneurship. So that program lasted about an hour and a half or a year and a half. I wish it lasted an hour and a half. That would be nice. And then my undergrad, I actually did business management as my major, entrepreneurship concentration, and then I was a Spanish minor. Um, and then, yeah, so that's kind of the education that I've had in terms of college-wise. Graduated high school in 2014, undergrad of college 2018, and then graduate school 2021. I think getting an education requires a lot of discipline, and publishing requires discipline. I think being in the business school, it's taught me the importance of being a self-starter. I think I was before going into business school, but it's just kind of re-emphasized that fact. I think, school teaches you communication skills, school teaches you organization skills. If you don't have that as a writer, as an author, it's really hard to be motivated. It's really hard to get your projects out there, and it's really hard to accomplish things in general. So I think school is a good training ground for the stuff that you want to do, post education wise, or maybe even while you're in school. I just really love storytelling, but I think that the unique thing about comic books is its visual storytelling. Um, if you look at my other works, I did like a sci-fi novel, I did a poetry and short story book. Those are very more so text heavy on that side and not so much visually inclusive. And so what I wanted to do with the comic book is learning how to tell a story with more pictures and more images rather than it being so, you know, reliant on text and words. And with comic books, there's not as much space to include text. You have to kind of show the story with visuals. And so that's not something that I really had the opportunity to do before. And so I really took a deep dive in wanting to try that modality of storytelling. But it's also just fun. The colors, the color scheme, the fun things that you can draw and put together. I just really love the different ways that you can write. There's not one way to tell a story, and I think comics enhance the reader's imagination because there's so much color and creativity that goes into it. That's a good question. I think it's different for many different writers. For me personally, it's mostly been solitary. But I think what I'm learning now in my career is that it's not bad to open up the door and have other people join the bandwagon of your creativity. I think it's good to get help. It's good to combine creative heads with other people and get invite other talent into your projects. So for me, I've been uh, blessed with the ability to do it all by myself, but sometimes that's not always the case. So I think maybe in the future, hoping to do some more collaboration. Yes, I think the most relatable was I worked in corporate America for almost a year doing advertising. Um, the funny thing is I'm always ahead of myself in many ways. So um, we had to do a lot of social media ads for our client. That was like Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and Snapchat and all of the social media giants that you can think of. Funny thing is that was being introduced to our team in the work space, but I was already doing that stuff for my creative projects maybe a few months before. So I kind of already had a head start on that stuff. But it was good because I have never had advertised on Snapchat and Pinterest before. I was used to like doing Facebook and Instagram. So I was able to take some of those skills away from the day job that I had and kind of apply it to the creative works that I wanted to do for my own stuff. Um, I have done a lot of customer service administrative jobs as well. Um, and I think it teaches you discipline. It teaches you lots of email writing is important, communication. I think any type of practice of writing is important because you want to make sure you get your point across. You want to make sure that you're getting the right information to people and that they can interpret it the way that you want them to. And the more that you practice writing, the more effective you can do that creatively when you're telling a story. So I think there's that. I think there's also multitasking. Every single job that I've had has always been, there's just so much to know, so much to learn, juggling so many plates and making sure that none of them fall. I think there's a lot of multitasking when it comes on to being an author. You have to market, you have to write, you have to meet other people, you have to network, you have to know the business side of things. So you're wearing a lot of different hats, and all the jobs I've had, I've worn a lot of hats. So lots of transferable experiences, I would say. First thing that comes to mind is self-starter or go-getter. I feel like those are complementary characteristics, but um, you have to have the motivation to just keep going. Because if you don't, it's really easy to get discouraged. It's really easy to feel like you want to give up or feel burnout from doing the job. Um, I think you have to be passionate about what you're doing. If you don't have passion for writing and storytelling, I don't think you're going to get anywhere because um, it's hard. Writing the writing process is hard, and I think there's a lot of energy and time and commitment, blood, sweat, and tears that have to go into it. And if you're not willing to do the work, and if you're not willing to struggle, if you're not willing to face writer's block every now and again, and learning how to overcome it. It might not be the best path to take for you. I think you have to be personable, very relational with people. It's so important, especially in the creative industries, to form relationships with people, get to know other writers, get to know different publishers, literary managers, other authors who have published, people that can mentor you. So you really have to be open-minded and willing to learn from people, and not thinking that you know everything, because you don't. And there's people who are more experienced who can teach you and help you avoid the mistakes that they made. So yeah, I would probably say those things. Uh, my phone, my computer, definitely, for sure. Like you said, not many things, but without my laptop, like, or my phone, I can't type a story. I mean, I could write it on paper, but that's only going to get me so far. So, technology, social media is such an important thing in this age. Without my phone, I can't post to my book accounts, to my personal account, to talk about my work. I can't network with other people. You know, I can't write. I can't do my visual editing, my graphic design for my books. There's lots of programs. There's sometimes I even use things like Canva, video editing software, and you need good technology and computer and to do a lot of those things. So, but again, not a large list of items, but really just my computer and my phone is where it's at. So, and maybe some good headphones if I'm doing like a special like video project for a trailer for my book or something like that. I do still use my notebook and pen from time to time. I definitely will never diss that, because that's where it all originated from, right? Um, I think I have like an idea book, and like I write some like of my ideas and of my stories that I want to do in the idea book, but I still can't figure out like how I think about things, because sometimes I'll write things down in a notebook and then sometimes I'll just write them in a Google Doc, and I go back and forth. I don't know why I do that. I don't know if it's like I just like having two like modalities of doing things, but I don't know how that has not confused me yet. But somehow I've been doing it and it's been working. But no, I do write things down too, but probably more heavy on the tech side. For specifically for my comic books, I have not traveled, not yet at least. I'd love to do that though. Um, in terms of travel, I've had to go places to like, for like book signings or if I was selling books, not for this one specifically, but for my sci-fi novel, The Adventures of Xerox. I went to a couple of venues to sell books, to sign books for people that bought them. Um, I guess I could, answer this question in a different way where sometimes like I would, go around my local town and like go visit bookstores and like, talk to people to see if I could get my books there, sold there or displayed there. So I don't know if that counts as travel, but that's my sneaking way of answering that question. But I do know other authors who are very accomplished, who do travel to other countries, um, who go to conferences, who do you know speaking events, and I hope to be able to do that too. But I think there's also that, depending on what opportunities you have, definitely there's travel involved in this type of career. So I think going through a traditional publisher, there's a lot of advantages, as they have established relationships in the industry, so they can get your book into lots of physical stores. They can get into Barnes and Nobles and a lot of brick and mortar businesses that you probably wouldn't be able to do if you self-published. I think they have a high quality of professionalism where they can, you have an editorial and a marketing team supporting you. You have distribution. They can easily get an ISBN and copyright your book for you. They pretty much handle everything for you. So I think um, there's a guarantee that it gets you know, all the professional work and support behind it. They can easily market and advertise your book in lots of different mediums and platforms. They handle all the production costs, so you don't have to, that doesn't come out of pocket. Disadvantage with traditional publishing is that the royalty side. Typically, if you go through a traditional publisher, most of the royalties are going to go to them. So if you're concerned about money, I probably it might not be the best avenue to take. Also, just with ownership, sometimes, you know, going through traditional publisher, you might not own your book or all the rights that you would if you were to like self-publish. That's why self-publishing for me has been a little bit more attractive, because I am very adamant about like owning my own work and making most of the money from my sales. That it's kind of nice to make money off of your artwork or your creative endeavors. I think the downside about self-publishing is you have to kind of, you know, do all the costs yourself. So you have to fund all of your, you know, your work. There's definitely there's the opportunities and ways to get your work funded as a self-publisher for sure. It just takes more time and energy on your part to go find out what those opportunities are and to get them and seize them. I think, you know, it's harder to get your books in, you know, to distribute your books, but you know, working with a traditional publisher, it takes time. You know, you may not hear back from people. You'll get a lot of no's, you'll get a lot of rejections. You know, they can, you know, change what you've created into what they think will be better. So if you're not exactly keen on people changing your work, you might want to be self-published, especially if it's something really unique that you really stand by. Self-publishing, you can publish right away. So traditional publishing, it might take time. It could take even a year or longer. So I think that's how, you know, how I would think about it. You know, I think there's a way to get there. Some might say it's luck. Some might say it's who you know. Some might say it's just how good your story is and, you know, how people react to it. Um, I think most writers probably live a somewhat modest life. Probably not with the 10 houses and and like maybe all the vacations and everything. But there are other writers who find success, probably a smaller pocket, but still noteworthy of success. Like, you know, J.K. Rowling's, it took her what 10 years to be found out and for her, you know, Harry Potter, you know, series to blow up. So I think it takes time. You know, Squid Game, the director took 10 years before he was able to get his movie through. I think with creators, it can take time, and I think it's possible. I think for the writers who do become really successful, yes, they do make a lot of money. Of course, they can travel, they can turn their books into movies. You know, their books can become TV shows, they can become video games, toys can be made out of the characters, t-shirts, everything. A whole franchise can be born from books, from a comic book. So look at Marvel. That's a perfect example of, you know, how comic books have entered the film industry and have grown to a incredibly large and supportive fan base. So yes, I think it's possible. I think it's really hard, but I think if you keep at it and you do your due diligence, I think it's you can achieve that. Yeah, I think honestly it would be an extension of the last question. Is I think people assume that being not even just a comic book author, but just a writer or author in general, that you're making a lot of money. I think people think, oh, like um, I think people think as soon as you put a book out, that must mean that it's making a lot of money because putting a book out is just really lucrative, and it's just not the case. I think a lot of, I guess I can be more honest at this part. Uh, a lot of writers don't always make money when they put stuff out. It's hard. It's hard to make money, and so I think a lot of people make that assumption that if you're published, you're making money, but uh, it's really easy to publish something and for it to sit there online and for no one to buy it, or just to struggle to make sales, because you're just still trying to figure out how marketing works. So I think that's one stigma that people make. Definitely the visual appeal to them. It's the first time where I was able um, to tell. Well, I'll say this. I think when writing comic books, you have to be very concise too. Um, that's something that has been really fun to do because I can like squeeze in a lot in a couple of frames, or in a volume or a chapter. Typically when I write other things like short stories or novels, like I can go on and on and on about the flowery language and describing this and that. But comic books, like you really, it's kind of like screenwriting, which is something I'm also trying to get into, where you have to be really brief about the story and get a lot across at the same time. And I think it's a challenge. I think it's a really fun challenge because um, it really pressures you to to be really engaging, but really in a short amount of time. And I really like that because it kind of forces you to get to the point, which in some cases, in other types of writing, you don't always have to do. So I think I like the challenge of it. I love the visual, you know, aesthetics of everything as well. That's always fun. So I think those two things is really what makes me love comics. I think, sometimes comics can be really stigmatized as like, it's for kids, or it may not be informative or educational. So I'm not going to buy that for my child or my kid, or they're not going to learn anything from it. So I think you can be put in a box as, oh, it's just entertainment. There's nothing to really grasp more than entertainment. But at least with my stories, I always try to plant some type of morale or lesson that people can learn from it. There's always some type of substantive thing to reflect on, or something that's thought provoking, that I try to put into my stories. And I think, in Modern Monarchy, it does go places sometimes where, um, it talks about mental health, and it talks about, sibling relationships and the importance of that, and forgiveness and all that stuff. Probably wouldn't assume that by maybe seeing the cover, all that stuff, but there's a lot of important, deep things that are in the story that um, I think people could misjudge and be like, oh, it's not, that might not be for me. But don't judge a book by its cover. I think that's maybe what people might do when it comes on to comics. So not so much comic books specifically, but I would probably say just like as a writer, as an author, as a creator, um, learning how to stay the course and stay motivated. Um, and people are going to say no to you. People are going to reject you. And I think being in this industry, in the creative industry in general, whether it's writing, film, or whatever, um, people will not always like your stuff, or they might say it's not good enough at this point. And I think writers really have to develop a tough skin, because it's really scary, putting your work out there sometimes and having people judge, critique, enjoy, compliment it. Um, and if you're not ready for that, I think you might get your toes stepped on, feelings hurt pretty bad. um, with me, like I really love what I do, so I won't beat myself up about what people think about my work, but um, I think it's something maybe some other writers or comic book authors may not be ready for, prepared for. Um, I really wish I knew that there were, you know, uh, funding books, campaign funding, crowdfunding campaigns that are out there, programs, websites that are out there to support creatives. Like, there's Kickstarter and stuff like that. I just recently learned about those things, and maybe if I'd known about those things earlier, I probably would have looked into them more in terms of funding my own stuff and creating more of a natural fan base around my work. And I think maybe if I had known about that earlier, that would have maybe changed the trajectory of how I approach my projects, maybe financially and things of that nature. So yeah. I do it part-time as of now, but that even takes a lot of time because I work full-time and then this is my part-time thing. And so pretty much I have no time outside of those two things. So it does take a lot of time. I would say I'm spending at least a few hours a day after my full-time job doing writing. So if you say maybe 2-3 hours times 7, it's what, 14 to 21 hours maybe a week that I'm spending. So maybe a full day's worth of work in a week is what I'm maybe spending towards my creative endeavors. It can fluctuate from time, of course. Life gets busy. You might put your creative projects on hold. I would say, when I was in school, that was the hardest time to be creative and stay inspired because I was always doing homework and trying to get that stuff out of the way. So you could actually see there's a gap between my first published book, which was in 2012, and then Modern Monarchy that came out in 2019. So it's a 7-year drought, I like to say, publishing drought, because I was in high school, I was in college trying to get all that stuff done. But I would say I'm usually doing the most work when it's closer to holidays, when I'm on breaks, maybe during the weekend, stuff like that. When the school or the job is not as demanding. Block out time to do it every single day. Be consistent about it, be thorough about it, be very clear about what your goals are and what you want to achieve. You have to have a passion for what you do. Because if you have a passion for doing comic books or writing in general, it will show, you'll never be discouraged to continue. But if you don't have a real deep down passion about what you're doing, your light's gonna burn out really quickly. I think it's an internal thing. I loved writing ever since I was little. And I never stopped because it just makes me happy. It's therapeutic for me. It's an escape. And I hope to give other people an escape when they read my stories. But I think you have to be true to yourself and know that this is something that you can't live without. If you couldn't write anymore, something would be missing from your life, something really dire. If you feel that way, then it's the right path for you. If you don't feel that way, then maybe you should consider maybe something else, or maybe it's not your priority. But I think you have to set aside time to figure out if it's for you. Join a writers group, join a writers community. I think connecting with other people can help you determine if it's something that you really want to do, or if it's maybe just, a hobby that you want to, play with from time to time. First of all, never stop writing, never stop creating. You have to know how to stay inspired and where to find your inspiration from. For me, that could be watching it could be binging Netflix. That could literally be your inspiration. It could be, breaking down your favorite comic book, studying the characters, studying the plots. It could be doing a writing exercise for 30 minutes every single day. But you have to do something to keep your creative juices flowing, to keep your brain, your creativity, flourishing, keep your mind stimulated by some type of intellectual stimulation. I would also say that it's important to have a mentor. You need someone in your corner. You need someone who's been through what you're trying to get to, who can give you advice, who you can connect with, who can um, tell you, what's legit from what's not legit, who can tell you, I think you should go here, not there. I think you should go with this publisher, not that publisher. Um, research publishers, research different agents, different managers, get to know the different publishers that are out there. Um, build your skill set. Don't stick to one thing. I would use your free time to learn different softwares, whether it's illustration, whether it's, writing software, whether it's video editing, screenwriting, photography, whatever it is, animation, like do it all. Or do what you love. I mean, don't do it all because you don't want to overwhelm yourself, but just be open to new opportunities, be willing to take risks, be willing to try something new. Um, Even if you don't like it, at least you tried it and you learned that you don't like it, instead of always wondering in the back of your head, should I have, done that? So I think, all of those things are really important, but you have to love it. You just have to. If you don't love it, then it's just not a good idea.